Thanks for joining us today. We are very excited to have three Small Favors artists with us, who I will introduce you to in a moment. But first, I'm going to recognize that the Clay Studio stands on the indigenous territory known as Lenapehoking, the traditional homelands of the Lenni Lenape people. We would like to take a moment to reflect on the role of the Lenape as the past, present, and future stewards of the land, and the role of all of us to join in their tradition of respect and caring for the land and each other. So now I'm going to introduce our three wonderful guests today. Asma Waheed is a Pakistani-born American artist and a mother of four living in Ellicott City, Maryland. After receiving her BA from West Virginia University in Education, she began experimenting with clay in classes offered at local community colleges. This introduction became a lifelong commitment, and she is now a master's student in ceramics at MICA. This says Hood, but this is from before. Yeah, Asma, I took this off of your website.
Oh, yeah.
But that's fine. So Asma is studying at MICA right now. Dedication to working with the community has also become a strong part of Asma's work. During monthly sessions at local faith-based communities, she provides a safe space for women in the community to engage with art. Welcome, Asma. Ruby Anyanwu discovered clay at Camden County Community College. She is from New Jersey. Ruby is an intern here at the Clay Studio, as well as a teaching assistant. Ruby says that she wants others to find themselves in her work, to feel that the things that are hard to say and share are not just difficult to them, everyone, and that these feelings, to be put simply, are not to be something that is shameful. And then, so welcome, Ruby. Taylor Caputo is the director of the engineering studios at Venture Lab at the University of Pennsylvania. She is also a practicing artist working at the intersection of traditional craft, product design, and technology. Drawing inspiration from local sources as varied as Pennsylvania Dutch folk art, the work of pop artist and Pennsylvania native Andy Warhol, and the richness of Philadelphia's cultural heritage, Caputo connects people and places across time as both a teacher and an artist. Taylor started taking classes at 5 years old, still practicing ceramics, and has always loved working with her hands and making functional objects. Excellent. So I'm going to start with my question that I ask all of our guests, and that is, how and why did you make the brave decision to make your life in art? And I'm going to ask Asma to start us off.
Oh boy. I feel like art picked me. It's just I've always been a creative person. I come from a long lineage of women that did a lot of crafts, knitting, embroidery, had a really high skills in those. I feel like it's sort of like in me through genetics, and I think I'm the happiest person when I am creating. I am at my best when I create, and that's one reason, because it makes me so happy. It makes me best at who I am. So I keep creating. You know, I'm miserable if I'm not in my studio. So I long for creativity. If I'm cooking, I like to be creative in that aspect as well. So I just all aspect, I feel like it's just creativity is sort of it's just part of who I am. And I think art and getting my master's or taking that route to really be immersed in it is something was my calling for a long time. And I'm so happy to now be a student and raising a family and doing it all.
Yeah, doing it all.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. I think that's I love to hear artists who say, you know, oftentimes people say, I don't think I could have done anything else, and that it shows me. But you did have to make kind of a big decision to you know, go after the education. And it sounds like you discovered it through taking classes, but do you remember sort of the moment? Was there a moment when your brain switched to thinking, yes, I'm going to be brave and get my master's degree. Yes, I'm going to be brave and go forward with this.
I think like I said, I've been doing a lot of other crafts like painting and embroidery, crochet. I feel like all my life, because I sort of inherited from my aunt and my mom. But I think with sort of when I lost my mom, I was trying to look for material that connected me and sort of go through that, help me with the grief. And I think when I touched clay, it became so apparent that like this is my medium, you know. And I was like, I want to learn and learn more and more and more. And I think that thirst was never satisfied. And I think I've sort of like with my community classes and my independent research sort of like led me, okay, I need to go dig deeper into it, like on a cellular level of clay to learn. And I want to also like share that joy. I think it was I can say it was moving to Maryland and finding a hood college close to my house was a program that was accessible to me, and I was able to take classes on my own sort of like schedule that really helped me sort of pursue that dream. But it started in 2011 when I lost my mom, so it's been sort of like a progression. There wasn't like a one moment I can say, but I think it was sort of the clay introduction happened through that grief, but it became like a really passion to share with others and learn more. And I feel like it's uh the there's so much to learn, and so much, the more I learn, the more I want to share the joy of clay.
That's lovely. That idea that it's coming to you, but then you want to give it back. It's
Mhm.
really lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that. Ruby, did I repeat the question?
Um, I actually took like a painting class my sophomore year of high school, even though I was on a STEM track and I wanted to go into physical therapy. And I remember like being in that class and being like, this is something that I want to do, but also feeling like it wasn't possible or something I was able to do because like being in the medical field was like one of the only career paths that felt like within my family I was able to take.
Mm.
And so then I pursued that and I went to school by freshman year of college for physical therapy. And I remember feeling like I feel horrible and this does not feel like something I want to do for the rest of my life. And so that spring I dropped out and I at the time I'd like put down a paintbrush because I started with painting and it'd been like almost 3 years at that point. And I started a huge project. I started working big, and I remember feeling like exuberated by being able to be creative again. And my sister had this conversation with me where she sat down and was like, you need to do this. And I was like, yeah, I should. And I agreed with her. And so I went to community college in Jersey for painting for a studio art degree. And then I started like a year in, I took a ceramics class on a whim. And like I really didn't enjoy it at first because there's so many rules to it and that I didn't quite understand at the time. And then like towards the end of the class, I realized that like this is what I want to do with my life because I felt like I understood myself more and I found my community through the class as well. And yeah.
That's great. I mean, I've heard a lot of people, again, sort of you touch clay and it just seems to change. And can you talk a little bit more about how you shifted from being annoyed that there were so many rules to loving it so much?
Actually, it was going from hand building to wheel throwing. It kind of made sense.
The
that-
wheel throwing.
Yes, wheel throwing when I first started made sense to me, and it felt like it's just a simple thing of like making a circle on a wheel, and like the repetitive motion was something that I needed, and it kind of helped me back to life.
So nice. Do you think there's a connection to being interested in medicine or like health or science that you still see in yourself now that you're pursuing art?
Absolutely. Like I still find it like in my artwork with like it being very like body part oriented and like spinal cord and like bones. Like it finds its way back into my art visually.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing. Claire?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll start off my answer by kind of getting, no, you're fine. With the stereotypical answer that, my creative life chose me. And you mentioned in my intro that I started ceramic classes at 5, and my joke is like, I didn't do sports as a kid. Ceramics was my sport. So that really introduced me to the world of working with my hands and specifically functional objects. And kind of fast forward to now, like a lot of what I work in and think about is the world of product design, and that's what I teach. So when I was kind of reflecting on my story today, a lot of it kind of clicked into place. Again, I'm like, oh yes, this goes back to, almost 30 years of this practice of thinking about functional objects and my creative output in that way. And kind of to give you a little bit more context too, in like how my creative life has progressed, it's been a lot of pivots in terms of like materiality and craft practices, because ceramics is my only kind of medium. So when it was time to go to college, I went to Tyler School of Art. I actually majored in metalsmithing. And I didn't know that when I went into Tyler. I actually thought I was going to major in ceramics. But then when I got exposed to more things, and like, especially in the metals program, it's metals, jewelry, CAD/CAM. I was exposed to 3D modeling and 3D printing. And that was like my first taste of digital fabrication. And that would just really open my world to, wow, this is such a cool tool to augment all of this analog processes that I already knew about. And digital fabrication isn't for everyone and for everyone's workflow. But for me, it was just like a really enabling kind of thing, and really kind of broadened my creative work, my creative kind of way of thinking about things. So when I was at Tyler, I focused a lot on my technical skills in CAD and 3D modeling, with my output being wearable objects. And then I was kind of thinking about, well, how can I apply these skills in different ways, grow my creative practice? Also, at the same time, I'm realizing that my job market kind of from graduating was like, I didn't really want a bench jewelry job, wasn't really my jam, didn't know if I really, also I get bored with things. I didn't really want to keep doing jewelry. I wanted to try something else. So I was like, how else can I apply these CAD skills? And kind of I went back to functional objects again. And that's kind of what led me to product design. Then I went to grad school in the School of Engineering at Penn and studied in their integrated product design program. And I still obviously think of myself as an artist, but my output is, again, kind of thinking about functional objects, digital fabrication. It's like, I was thinking about it today too. It's not like I necessarily take off my artist hat, put on my product designer hat, take it off, put on my educator hat. I'm wearing all the hats kind of at the same time. And I think of all of my work, all of my output kind of in this kind of artistic way. So, yeah.
That's great. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk about your earrings later.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. We are going to start with Asma talking to us about her small favor and the rest of her work. As soon as I do this. There we go. Asma, would you like to talk to us a little bit about your small favor, and then we can move into your other work and how it all connects?
Sure. A little bit about me, as I grew up in Pakistan, and I think I grew up with so much history around me. And I think when I came here and started working in clay, I did a lot of independent research as well. And I think every book I picked up, history book, especially if it's sort of like talking about Islamic history and the ceramic in Islamic history. I think the lusterware is one thing that I like, that caught my eye always. And any museum I like, Met Museum, I have, seen these pieces, and I always wanted to actually take a class. And it was one sort of material I feel like it was not accessible here in US. So this past year I went to Tepalpa in Mexico in Escuela Nacional de Cerámica School of Art, and took a ceramic lusterware class with 2 Iranian masters. And I think this work I created there. So I think like so much I have already sort of discovered in means of Mughal architect, my background in red clay, and I'll talk a little bit more about in further slides about that. But I feel like the lusterware is something, as I'm making it, I'm doing more research on it. It has a huge historical rich history, created and from 9th century in Iraq, and then traveled to other Arab lands and sort of like went to Syria and Iran, and then came back to Andalusia, modern day Spain. And I think all I was just thinking of sort of like the pieces I've seen in museum, and how I couldn't just trace back how they got there, how those pieces that I'm seeing in museum, how they got there. So I think I sort of thought about the whole this in the name of sort of like what do you call it, trying to how these stolen pieces are put in museum, but then I can't trace them, but then they seem still so far in the history, but then still here I'm learning about it. So I sort of wanted to make a piece sort of like that is so small that that's easily stolen, but it's also like you can put in your pocket, you know. Yes, I had this mind that, okay, I'll apply to, I'm making small work and I want to sort of apply for sure, but it was also like something that you can easily put in and steal and put in your pocket. And but then I was like, if you can steal and put in pocket, but then it's easily carry and return it as well too. So I'm thinking of this whole sort of like a full cycle of how I can't trace back, but how I would really like to see these museum pieces back where they belong, in shrines or mosques, or in a where they're sort of taken away from the walls of these monuments. So that was sort of my thinking when I was making these, how like I'm here and I made this and I want to remember. And I wrote it in calligraphy in this piece. It's called Zikr, which is remember, and sort of like remembering where I'm coming from and where I am in context of this lusterware and contemporary work as well. And can we go to next? Is that enough? Like, I don't know, I can talk more about it.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So the calligraphy on the piece says remember. And
Yeah,
that's the
remember. Yeah. And this is the work I've been, so I am a student, so my work sort of like has been evolving a lot. I make functional wear. I also make installation. I have built a little bit of a sort of performance art. And these are the earlier pieces, are sort of originating from living in a post-colonialism era in Pakistan, and how it has really influenced the food, the language, and the education. And the work on the left is a cup that is titled as Faluda cup, and I sort of taken I make it in red clay. It's fired to cone 04. The colors are sort of you can say like my own take on like Multani Pakistani ceramics, and being living in US. And I'm a huge fan of Van Gogh's work, so I sort of like sort of want to make work that is talking about and like taking my own history, navigating, living in US in diaspora, and sort of making it my own. A lot of motifs that are used in my work, they're coming from Mughal architects. I live close to Lahore, and historically if anybody knows, there's a lot of monuments. They're built by Mughal architect, and those are mostly in red stone or red clay. And that's why I love using red clay. Red clay feels home to me. And another sort of like, if you look at my work, I sort of adorn it with a lot of jewelry. That's another aspect of like Mughal era. Like Mughals wore a lot of, those emperor wore a lot of rubies and emeralds, and same with women and men, they all wore a lot of jewelry. And still, I think coming from South Asian culture, we, as women, I own a lot of jewelry. It's in dowry, jewelry is a big thing in daily life. We wear jewelry, and I sort of wanted to make a few pieces that sort of encompasses that history in it as well. Can we go to next slide? So this piece, these are wall tile, 3D tiles. And yeah, please, if you have any question, and if I'm talking less or more, please let me know. Because there's so much I can talk, but I'm also like really sort of like vigilant about the time and the time of other artists.
You're doing great.
Okay. So as I said earlier, my work sort of draws a lot from architect and arches and biomorphic patterns of Mughal era time. I sort of layer all those in my work. Like if you are sort of far and these are on the wall, they'll have a different symbolism and you can see them in a different light. But as you move forward and see them close, there's a lot of layers. Just like I think as someone living in diaspora, someone who's close to me, they know more about me. But from far or further, as a woman who's wearing scarf, there's a different kind of like picture someone will get. And that sort of comes through in my mind, in my work, creating these layers. Intersections of line. I use a little bit of porcelain in my work, and sort of that, making it harmonious with red clay of my experience living sort of in between culture, but in culture, in between homes, but in homes at times. I think everything's like, I feel like at times I belong nowhere, but then I feel like I belong everywhere. I can belong wherever I want. But these like push and pull in my work and sort of talking it through colors. I also add a lot of sort of jolly patterns. If you see on the tile on the right side, the jolly patterns, another amazing architectural feature in Mughal art. And Mughal architect, actually. It is originally made for separation of rooms, or also because it's so hot, it is also sort of work as air conditioning or cooling effect of the building. But I think in my work, I sort of use these perforated holes of sort of navigating through systems, through boundaries, through borders, through homes, through living in different culture than my own, and sort of navigating back and forth. It provides a barrier, but also it, I think, gives room to have conversation and exchange ideas.
Privacy, yeah.
Can you go to next slide? This is my latest work that I made last summer. Here I've, again, like I think my work sort of really takes a lot from the Mughal architect, and here you can see again the jolly patterns. This is the back panel is paper clay with a lot of sort of like jolly or holes or perforated. These are panels on the back. In the middle, there's red clay, a vessel, sort of like a self-portrait, which is sort of, I know in pictures you can't really see, but back of it is a lot of it sort of collapsing or falling down, but it's still sitting on a cake plate elegantly, and it's adorned with jewelry again. And the front is an arch from one of the Mughal architect in Lahore, and it's a very common sort of arch you can find in that architect. This work was it was called Between Homes, and I think it's sort of like really, I think sort of helped me like was talking. This work was really sort of mirroring my feeling of what home is and what um how like living in diaspora and raising kids and what is it that I want to pass it on of home to them, but also realizing I am home to them as well. I am their home as I'm looking for my own home, or I'm creating home for them. So that's why there's a lot of this flowiness, or sort of like, even though it's like the backdrop can be a little barrier, but you can still sort of, there's room for conversation, ideas. Um, there's room for sort of uh, like living in. I felt like creating the space. Like I can't be so closed off. I need to make it work. That's sort of like, it's an osmosis. It's I'm giving and it's giving me back, and it's a relationship of sort of like flowiness. There is barrier, and the work looks very, wherever you stand, it gives a different sort of feeling, and that's what it is. I think like in going through my daily life, uh, raising a family, giving them, like speaking my trying to teach them my native language, but at times feeling, oh my god, I'm failing, I'm not, sort of picking and push and pull of like what I want to transfer or where home it is to them and for me, and sort of navigating it all in that space. That's what's been I've been working on. It is still evolving. My work is still evolving. I'm sort of like, I think at this point I'm so I feel like sort of in like crossroad of like which work I want to focus more. Is it the lusterware or this like red clay and themes of diaspora and home and effects of like diaspora and post-colonialism and all that, what it means to me right now as a mother, as an artist. So we'll see what happens next in my work. I have a sort of like a semester coming up soon, starting in a few weeks, and I'll be making new work, and I'm excited. And is that all for my slides, or is there more?
I think that was it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No,
Thank you.
so
That
much
was-
for this opportunity and talk, letting me talk about my work.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Asma. We'll hold questions to the end. So if anyone has questions for Asma, just keep them in your mind or make a note and we'll come back to that. I hope you don't give up on either of your bodies of work. I hope you just keep working on both. And the idea of being an artist and a mother is such rich territory, and other things really think deserves more attention. So thank you, Asma. Ruby, I'd like to talk about small favors and what you did for this show and then your other work. Yes.
So this is a wall hanging piece that is kind of based off of a piece that I started last summer after like taking a few months off of creating with clay. It was kind of the first piece that I made while I was back, and I was just frustrated from from having so many ideas pent up and like nowhere to put it. And I just kind of made this piece on a whim where it was like as I was creating it, it was coming to me as I was making it, and like where I wanted to form everything. And yeah,
What does it mean to you? Does it feel like, was this the first time you made something with a mouth? Like, how does it resonate with you that it's
yeah,
open and the tongue? Is this a self-portrait in a way?
in a way, yeah. It was the first time that I made something with a mouth. The first one was actually just kind of like a paperweight, like it didn't have any purpose, and then it kind of evolved into being able to be something that could be displayed. And I kind of wanted it to look like it was talking to you. Like it's called Just Say It, and it's being able to express yourself through clay and being able to say the things that like I wasn't able to say while I didn't have my hands on clay. And yeah.
So it was literally like getting back to your expressive
Yeah.
material and speaking. That's great. And you've definitely taken this image and sort of expanded it.
Yeah,
So I
I
don't know,
kind of
if
scaled it
folks
up
can
and
see that Ruby's wearing go like this a little bit more. So Ruby's earrings and necklace are all versions of the mouth. So, and that's another thing. That's another idea that once you make something, it's a sculpture, it hangs on the wall, now you want to wear it as part of your adornment.
Yeah.
You talk about what it means that it's like almost the word I'm trying to think of, like an amulet,
Yeah.
or I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, literally in your mouth. Go ahead. What does it mean to you that you're wearing these things now?
Actually, I've like been interested in jewelry for a very long time, and it's like kind of like one of my special interests, like being able to adorn myself in things, and like being able to adorn myself in something that I've created has been something that I've always dreamed of. And I love that it was actually able, or that I was able to have it be one of the first pieces that I created as I like came back into clay from a little hiatus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that seems really meaningful. That's great. I was thinking of for myself, if I was wearing that, I think it would help me remember to speak my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the piece on the left is the first piece that I made or that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. And the one on the right is an eye, which also finds its way into my artwork a lot. I've like suffered from like some periods of dissociation where I feel like far from myself and like very far removed from myself. And like when I feel like that, it feels like I have like a lot of eyes on me, and like there's a certain perception that people have of me, and then it's more negative and feels like I'm always being watched or something like that. And it's kind of found its way like through like the simple eye.
Mm.
And I've made that into a wall hanging, and I've kind of allowed it to find like a safer place in my artwork. And yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that when you were saying it. Is the eye positive? Like you're taking that thing, feeling that can be kind of negative and turning it into something
Yeah.
that you can control, that's like positive. Yeah, I like that idea. And the eye is has such a long history in all kinds of art, including Islamic art. The like a symbol of an eye is often a protection.
Yes.
symbol.
Yeah. And this is like one of when I first started here, like one of the biggest pieces that I'd done at the time. And I also like to incorporate like sculptural work into my functional wear. And like as soon as it came off of the wheel, I was looking at it and wondering like what else I could make this in and what does it look like. And I like suffer from back pain, and like a spinal cord was like the first thing that came to mind. And I allowed it to kind of like find its way around the piece.
Mm. Well, and vessels obviously have long been thought of as representations of body, but even so specifically with like the neck and shoulders, the spinal cord makes perfect sense as part of that form. Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of taking something that could be negative in a lot of your images, your objects, and sort of controlling them by putting them in your art, making them positive, like turning that what could be bad into something good.
And on the left is the first lamp that I've made, and it's based on my last name, Anyanwu. I'm Nigerian American, and at the time I was rediscovering my identity within being Nigerian, and my last name is the name of the sun god or the sun goddess in my culture. And I was talking to Naima about it because she had asked me what my last name meant. And she was like, you need to do something with that. You need to make something with that. And that same day, I went upstairs and started working on this because I had this idea in my head that I wasn't like actually acting on. And I like looked up a lot of depictions of what she looked like, and that's why I added the third eye in there because she was depicted with the third eye in a lot of imagery that I saw of her. And then I added sun rays at the top with holes in it that allowed light to be exposed through it as well.
And their eye, they are eyes because they're open and the light is coming out, but at the same time, they're sort of missing the part that you made in the other sculpture, which is another nice like push and pull. The one on the right.
And then the one on the right actually came to me in a dream. She was like this very kind Spanish speaking alien that came like during like an alien invasion, and seeing her being like, and for some reason I don't speak a lick of Spanish, but I also was like communicating with her in Spanish, and she was asking like if anyone else in the room like understood her. And I like came up to her and like told her that I knew what she was saying, and she was like the excitement that she had to be in this room full of strangers that did not speak the same language as her except for me really stuck with me when I woke up, because like it's hard for me to remember my dreams now, and like that's a dream that really like stuck with me.
And then communication, going back to the mouth, it's that another theme that's really seems to be strong and carrying through that idea that your art is a way that you're communicating with people, and maybe looking for someone else in the room that can, I don't mean to analyze your dreams, sorry. But yeah, right, isn't that what we're trying to do? Make art,
Yeah.
find the other people who understand. Yeah, beautiful. And I love that you were, here at the Clay Studio or whatever creative community people are part of. Sometimes it's just those conversations in the hallway that can be so powerful and important to
Absolutely, yeah.
like trigger something in your mind that will inspire you onto the next body of work. So what's next on your list of things that you want to make?
A great question. I want to make a giant eye lamp. I still haven't found out like a way for it to actually work, but one of these days it'll come to
We have a
me.
product designer here, so
Yeah,
maybe.
let's chat later.
That would be great. And then what's one more question that I was just thinking about? And let it come back to me. Oh, has your experience teaching, being a teaching assistant here at the Play Studio affected your approach to your own artwork?
It's made me be more patient with myself. Like, so it's a very, very hard art form to learn, especially like in the small amount of time that they have. And so whenever I find like concepts or I find myself having to reteach myself how to do certain things on the wheel or like hand building, instead of like getting frustrated with myself, I remind myself like you're still learning, you're still a student, as like Asma said, still a student to clay. And it's okay to mess up and like have to relearn something. And it's you have to be patient with yourself with things like this.
It's true. Takes 10,000 hours. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Okay, Taylor.
Yeah, so this is one of my pieces that's in small favors. I'll tell you a bit of the story behind it and inspiration. I think, well, I guess it says right there what it is. They're inspired by Italian butter cookies. So the story behind this piece is, so my partner Joe's birthday is Christmas Eve. We all hate it. He doesn't enjoy it. But our Christmas Eve tradition is that we go to Termini Brothers Bakery and we pick up everything to bring to our families the next day. And, sometimes you have to stand in line a couple of hours and we just, make it a fun thing for his birthday. So after the holidays, I just really honestly was like, I just need to make something fun. And I honestly tell a lot of my students in my class, like, they get so hyper focused on trying to make something good. And I'm so like, honestly, all the time, just like make something fun that you like. So I was finally like, I need to make something fun for once. So, and that also comes up against a lot of my work also takes a lot of inspiration from symbols, and symbols specifically that are like kind of hyper local. So I live in South Philly, grew up with a lot of Italian American traditions and food. So that's how this kind of piece all came together. To tell you a little bit more about the fabrication techniques, this uses a couple different types of laser etching techniques. So the cookie itself is laser etched on birch plywood. And then the sprinkle part is a back painted acrylic technique that I've been developing over the last couple of years. And then they're assembled. And then thinking through the form and kind of the two-part articulated kind of form, that's actually a shape I've been working with a lot in my other kind of work. So it's kind of cool how it all came together. It's kind of applying like more of an abstract shape I was working in and applying it to something representational.
Great. Well, and I love that, you know, these cookies have two parts, but they go the other way. But
Yeah.
you're still referencing that they have two parts, but you can make it work with the piece. I have also a strong connection to these cookies.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's so funny. Like some people are just like immediately like, oh my God, Italian butter cookies.
Like, oh,
Yeah. Yeah, this is my other piece that's in small favors. This is a brooch. So speaking to my background in wearable design, the main iconography in the center is inspired by Pennsylvania Dutch symbolism of they call it the distelvink. It's thistle finch. It commonly was used in part of their hex sign iconography. Some of you might be familiar with that. They're painted often on barns as kind of like a symbol of good luck, blessings. And that just really resonated with me. I've been using that iconography in a lot of my work. And this piece in terms of fabrication is also using some of the same laser etching fabrication techniques that I've been experimenting with for a number of years, but on a much smaller scale, especially the distelvink in the center, which is kind of hard to see in this picture, but it's on a clear piece of acrylic. Which was extremely tedious to do and had very little room for error. So that was also quite a challenge for this piece going from, I think it's one of the next pieces in the slide is a 18-inch version of basically a very similar piece. So this piece, the other piece I made before, and then really scaled it down, which was it was a challenge, but a really interesting challenge.
How did you get the image on there?
Sorry,
how is the image applied?
Yeah. So the image is applied. So when you purchase acrylic, it comes with a protective film on it. And I essentially laser etch a line that draws out that image. And then so first, let's say I'm painting the blue layer, I peel away just the parts that I'm going to paint blue.
Oh, you use it as you're using that film as like a stencil, multi-parted stencil.
Exactly, like a masking technique, or really like a lot of traditional like sign painters do something similar. So I'm painting the blue, letting that dry, peeling away like the red parts. So it's very time consuming, and especially on a scale like very small. So it took me, I think, 4 attempts, and this was my 4th attempt.
So that's fascinating because I have to say that I just assumed that you had sort of applied it with a digital process.
Oh,
I did not realize that part was hand painted. So
yeah,
that's egg on my face, but I love hearing about how you did it. It's amazing.
Yeah. So this piece was created before the smaller piece, but again, similar iconography of the distelvink. But this one is interesting because I also kind of mashed it up with another kind of reference to pop culture. So last year I was very into Elvis Costello. Yeah. So this is also a nod to the album cover for his iconic album, My Aim is True. So I just really liked the idea of combining or thinking about folk art and pop culture together, and also kind of updating that with digital fabrication. So I'm still kind of exploring this, but yeah, and that was kind of the thought process behind this piece. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, and it looks like it's pop culture and it's art.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So this was a project I worked on yeah, 2016 to 2018. I had an appointment at Penn right after I graduated grad school in the School of Fine Arts in a biodesign lab. I was working under a designer and artist. His name was Orkan Telhan, who was essentially developing new ways to design cellular organisms to do all types of things. So create new dyes for fabrics, to create healthier foods. So I was involved in one, designing the machine, which you can see on the bottom, that did that process. And then two, I also was creating work, kind of conceptual kind of work around how one would use these essentially genetically modified organisms in new ways. So I'll speak mostly to the donuts on the top because I love this project. So these donuts use a special type of modified yeast that we created and designed essentially that created its own vitamin A. So the idea was that these were much healthier donuts. I was also still very into donuts, but was very into donuts at the time. And we wanted the donuts to obviously be designed as well. So I designed these donuts first in CAD. I 3D printed them, 3D printed the patterns for them. I made food safe molds, silicone molds. And then we baked our genetically modified yeast dough in those molds. And this was the outcome of them.
Wow.
So this was really like my first kind of exposure into, like I said, I was working with an artist and designer of like, wow, artists and designers are really great at solving scientific problems and using science in really creative ways.
Yeah, working together. I was just at RISD and they have a great like nature lab where artists and designers are also working on lots of climate change things. This is so cool.
Yeah. So this is a piece I created recently. So I've been starting to incorporate AI assisted CAD design into my workflow. I'll actually, for the people in the room, I have an example of this piece. It's a piece my student made. It's made with AI assisted CAD. It's a Furby. But I'll pass that around. It's just a really cute example. But so this piece that we're looking at, I was I was interested in feeding essentially the large language model more conceptual kind of prompts and seeing how it turned those into three-dimensional objects. So as you can kind of see, I'm interested in folk art, different types of symbolism of Americana. So I started feeding it ideas around life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So specifically, my prompt was life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness in a ring structure. So I essentially took two different versions of those CAD models, put them together kind of like that. And then I 3D printed it in stereolithography, which is UV set resin, very high resolution. And yeah, I have a project in one of my classes with a similar workflow. That's what the ring is from. And it's just been, I mean, it's very new, this type of technology, but it's been really enabling because, it's actually very hard to model a Furby if you're new to this technology. So at least for my students and a bit for me, even though I've been working in CAD modeling for a long time, it's really kind of opened the world of what's possible.
Amazing. So cool. Thank you. What a pleasure to have three such different artists, but all just so passionate about what you do, and all this sharing your ideas with us today has been amazing. I'm excited to open the floor if anyone has any questions. Oh, that was the last one. So do we have any people in the room, including the artists for each other, who might have questions?
Yes.
To go back. Richard, would you like to ask a question?
Well, I'd like to direct a question to Asma. Asma, your Pakistani origins have always been part of the art that you make, and I'm wondering, in this era where we see more walls going up than bridges, and I'm wondering if you see yourself as someone who can really, with your art, help explain um, the universality of art, and specifically by presenting more images from your culture. If you feel that's really a part of your passion, your mission in your art, you know what I'm saying? Because I
Yeah.
think it's really a wonderful thing, especially now.
I think it's a great question. I think for me, Richard, it's just being present in a room, in a gallery, wearing scarf. I think sometimes speaks such volumes, and just being in spaces, because I also don't see a lot of representation of like where I'm coming from. So I think willingly, unwillingly, unconsciously, consciously, I think it is present. It is present in my work. And I think the sort of the jolly patterns that I continue to, the screens that I continue to bring in my work, it is, I think, sort of touches a little bit of on that notion that you can still, like, as a woman, as someone who practices Islam, I can still have my boundaries, but I'm still having those holes for conversations, for allowing others and myself to navigate, and sort of like allowing those conversations. So where I'm respected with my boundaries, but I'm also allowing. And as a whole, I think like my art is just I think, like I said earlier, I think being in spaces that I'm sometime or I feel like, not feel like, or sometimes made or have these looks I've received that, oh my God, who is this person? I think just being present, I think, is speaking volume at the moment. And I think just having conversation. I think if I have a good conversation, an open, honest conversation with the one person who comes and looks at my work, I think that's enough for me. I don't need to change the millions of people, or like bring them. I don't feel that way, but I think having that one conversation and a really grassroots level, having a good connection with my cohort, people who know me, I think that will go a long way, rather than, I think, me sort of having this real lot of pressure, like, oh my God, I'm out to change something. Like I'm a person who sort of works more on grassroots level, and sort of have those strong connections with people around me, and having honest conversations, because I think that's where change happens. And that's where, I think, in my mind, I think you can see the effect of it. I hope I answer your question.
I think that's wonderful. Change really comes on the grassroots level. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for being here.
You bet.
Thanks, Richard. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks, Asma. Does anyone else have questions for any of the other?
There's a question for Ruby in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Oh, also Julia was telling us before that one of Taylor's pieces, I think was it Taylor's piece? It's on the wall behind you?
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that Julia?
Yeah, Julia's.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
Oh, there.
right there.
Thank you. Thanks for showing us. Question for Ruby. Was it difficult remembering what the alien in the dream looked like?
No, actually, I feel like
What a great
that is a great question. One of like the most prominent things about her was her face, because she kind of had like this iridescent glow to her, and like multiple eyes that spanned up her face. And I feel like it's one of those faces that you can't really forget.
Mhm. Do you find that when you try to represent something like that, you oftentimes when I have a dream and I'm trying to remember it, it's almost like trying to represent it makes it go away in my mind. But
Yeah,
that didn't happen with her.
not at the time. I feel like her face in my head kind of It's hard to remember now, but at the time it was like so fresh and I worked on it like really quickly after the dream that she was there.
Oh, great. Fun. Maybe one time we need to have a good dream analyst on the
Right?
play conversation. Fun. I have a question for Taylor. Does anyone else have other questions? Or, I mean, I can't ask you about AI super quick, but because we have like one more minute. You said it was enabling, and you said, I mean, that's like the last project we were talking about was really like you are feeding in were you feeding in sort of the imagery, or were you asking AI to go out into the internet and find the imagery that responded to the prompts you were giving?
Yeah, great question. So the tool that I use, it's actually called Meshy.ai. It's a text to 3D model program. And what essentially it is doing, I mean, no one's actually exactly sure how it's working, but from my understanding, what it's doing, it is essentially looking out into the internet, pulling what is like I think a good way to describe it is an example. So what I found like for the word liberty, it is looking to the internet world and saying, what are three-dimensional models that are coming up most commonly associated with the word liberty? And in that case, it was the Statue of Liberty. So that's kind of how it's translating those words into three-dimensional models. Sometimes it didn't make sense at all. And sometimes it was very obvious. And I think one of my takeaways from that piece in particular was that those three words were, like, especially with Statue of Liberty, very America-centric and very Western-centric. So that was just an interesting takeaway from that.
Yeah, that's great. I think it's really important as we talk about AI to sort of talk about the different kinds of programs and the different applications, because I think a lot of people, myself included, often think like, oh my gosh, AI is so scary, and that it's like this one thing.
Yeah,
But in fact, it's different ways to do things. So you're basically using it as a way to sort internet.
Yeah.
So as opposed to like telling you what to think, you're saying, these are the ideas I have. Can you just like search through and find some stuff?
Exactly. It's a tool. That's always how I always think
Just
of it.
like a 3D printer.
Exactly.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah.
Or a pottery wheel.
Yes.
Really, when it comes down to it. 75 years ago, an electric pottery wheel was thought to be like super scary and modern, and we have totally accepted those. So yeah, it happens. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you so much for your time, all three of you, and for visitors and Zoom people. Thank you so much.
Thank you.